It is the First Friday Entrepreneurship Call with K-State Research and Extension. The purpose of the First Friday e-call is to nurture small businesses and inspire entrepreneurship across the state. And we are going to encourage partner sharing. We do encourage partner sharing every time. So if after Deb's part, if you have something to share, be prepared to share it. The call is scheduled for 60 minutes, and as always, it is being recorded, and you'll get a link to the website after it's posted. And without any further ado, I want to introduce Deb Brown. And Deb, thank you so much for your generosity in joining us. You and Becky just always inspire us Kansans. So thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here. You ready for me to go?
I am.
All right. Business has changed. Our downtowns are different, and life as we knew it is over. But we have a choice. We can wallow in our grief for the old ways, or we can embrace the new ways and make things happen. If you don't change anything, nothing will happen. It's not a matter of time where you can wait it out, hoping things will return to normal, because they won't. Who's going to save you? No one's coming to save you. This is not a time where you need saving. It is a time to be creative, work with each other, and kick it into idea-friendly gear. You already have 99% of everything you need. I'm going to give you some quick advice for the current entrepreneurs and those that are considering being an entrepreneur. People in your town, they're shopping somewhere. Your new job is to find out where, then be there. Be willing to try new things, take the small steps to make things work. The old ways of doing things, it's gone. The future is here, and it's time for new ways. We know the future is coming at us fast, and the world is changing. In 20 years, Elon Musk says that new cars won't have steering wheels. In 5 years, buying local is going to beat online, according to IBM. And right now, they're 3D printing entire houses for $10,000 in materials. You can get a Roomba to mow your grass in the summer and blow leaves in the fall, and even blow snow in the winter. That's available now. You can order a Vespa robot that will follow you around and carry your bags or groceries. You can do that today. Oops, sorry about that. Idea friendly. This is the time to use it, the idea friendly method. So instead of 6 old white men sitting in the back room making decisions for your town, it can now be everyone making your town even more special. You start with your big goal for your community. You use that goal to gather your crowd. You turn your crowd into a powerful network by building connections. And you and your newly powerful network accomplish that goal by taking small steps. Pretty simple, and that's it. Be the town that uses everything they must have. Give everyone a chance to try their ideas out. And all the ideas are good enough to try. Now, here are some stories of towns that have started to be that town. The Old Geezers Club is in Akron, Iowa. Retired farmers brought in their equipment so they could work on projects together and teach other people how to use the tools. So for that entrepreneur that needs to learn a few new things, the Old Geezers are there. For that student who has an idea but not the funds to create something cool that he could sell, the Old Geezers are there. They're in the basement of a hospital that was later a school that was later a nursing home. And they've currently renamed their club to the Down Under Club. There's also individual businesses on the first floor that are open, and they're expanding as they go. In Columbiana, Ohio, when this broken window was boarded up, it was just waiting for a business to come here, and it looked like this. So this is a perfect canvas for an artist in your town. How do you go about finding those artists? Well, ask around. Call your friends. Post on Facebook asking who are the local artists in town. Remember that idea-friendly process? Gather your crowd around finding local artists. Who else would know the artists that could in town that could paint this? Build your connection. Put more calls out for artists, and you're going to be surprised at how many people will answer. And then let them know you have a project for them to work on. Take your small steps. You have a list of local artists now. How could you or anyone work with them to create a business? Maybe it's only one artist that wants a thriving business in one building. Maybe it's a group of artists that would like to work together, use some of the economic development monies to get them started. The city manager in Columbiana took that idea to bring in a local artist to paint the scene. That artist worked on this painting, and what he did differently was they did it during an outdoor festival downtown. Lots of people watched and enjoyed watching him work, and they got to tour the empty building as well. That helped get it rented. Oh, and of course, they paid that artist as well. In Concrete, Washington, they use an empty lot for a community garden. Now, this brings folks together around a common theme. It's also a way to feed hungry people, supply food for local restaurants, and provide learning for folks who don't know how to garden. How could you grow this idea with small steps? Well, start with a farmer's market. See if people like the product. Could you connect with a restaurant to provide certain foods? Could you team up with your local grocery store to buy your product? Once you start taking money for your product, you're now a business. Does your city hall provide some one-stop information on how to start a business? Think of all the things that you need to start a business. Tax information, and where and how to pay for it. Registration as a business locally and statewide. Access to the tools the city has available for new businesses. And the other thing they have are people are going to share your story about your new business. Museum on Main Street has access to the Smithsonian for small town America through their museum exhibitions, research, educational resources, and programming. Now, they've visited 1,600 communities across America since 1994. That's Museum on Main Street is the name of that organization. But what if you tried this idea with the students in high school? Team them up with your local historical society. Do things a little differently though. Why not ask the students to come to the museum and choose items to put on display? Then the students can write up the information, create videos, share with the people they know, and get more folks into your museum. You know, one day those students will come back to your town simply because you helped them create a stake in their town. Try the informal incubator project. You know, we had a building owner in my town, Webster City, Iowa, that had several buildings downtown. I approached them with the incubator project idea. So how it works, you put your buildings in the program, you offer 3 months free rent and reduce rent the rest of the year. Our chamber agreed to help the businesses that went into those buildings with some marketing, and the Small Business Development Center came in to help that business with creating a valuable business plan. Then we began talking about the project everywhere. People were just waiting for somebody to give them a chance to try their idea out. Now, the benefits to the owner, at least their utilities were being paid by someone else. And we know that every building needs love, and this provided that. The business could leave at any time. Remember, it's a way to test out their business idea, or they could stay if they wanted to. Now, did it work? You betcha it did. We had this amazing Italian restaurant, and they lasted for a year and would still be there if the husband wasn't offered a job 3 times his normal salary in another state. Family always comes first, and that's in the code of ethics in our community. No worries, though. The Mexican grocery store downtown wanted to open a restaurant, but they were saving to buy a commercial hood, which turns out is kind of expensive. In the meantime, they took advantage of the incubator program for 1 year. Next up was a new and used store run by an artist who collected the most unique things. She was busy, so busy that she grew and she moved to a nearby town that's a little bit larger. In one of the other buildings, Chicago Style came in and participated for a year. They liked what they were doing. They had such a good turnout of customers that they bought a building in the same block, and now they've expanded it to be 3 times bigger. Imagine. All this turnover, I want you to know it's a natural process. It's like breathing, which is better than having empty buildings and wishing one business would come and fill it in. Try some temporary solutions. This empty space was used during Ladies' Night Out. Mrs. Anderson crochets beautiful scarves, hats, gloves, and more. And she sold out during this event. This was a great time to try her product and see if folks wanted it. Could she open a business around this product? She found out the answer is no, because it requires too much time in production. However, she could place her items in somebody else's store. And this event gave another person the opportunity to see the space. She has her own business doing hair. Her space was tiny with just one chair. The rent was way too high. She got the idea she could buy this building, have 3 chairs, and make room for other independent businesses to showcase a few of their products. So that's what she did. Take a look at beauty salons. Even small towns probably have one. But when was the last time an economic developer considered them as important business development tools? So walk into any small town salon, and you're likely to find that the women who work there and the men are independent contractors who rent their booths. Maybe there's also a massage therapist seeing clients in a side room. They're all business owners. Look around at the displays. Besides the hair care products offered by the salon owner, you may see scarves, jewelry, candles, all manner of retail items. Those are pop-up temporary businesses, often set up by other potential entrepreneurs testing out the market. Except they don't call themselves that. They just think they're just selling something as a side business. How about try a pop-up store? Fill an empty space that's for rent already. Now, this could be another store's second store for a short time. It could be a home business trying out their products in a trial run, or even a nonprofit that sells things. Let your artists put some of their work in the space with the knowledge they won't be there long. In Goffstown, New Hampshire, a local group of artists does just that. When a building is empty, they swoop in and put art up. Now, it'll give the possible renter an idea of how that space might look. The walls are no longer stark. This is an empty space inside a coffee shop in Watertown, Minnesota. They used the wall to feature photos from a local photographer until they could rent it out. Now, think about this. You could do this in any business with a blank wall. It doesn't have to be retail. It could be your local insurance agency. There are a lot of photographers in small towns, and they work from home. Renting out a wall could be a solution for both businesses. These neighbors, and it's Minneapolis, a little bit bigger town, well, they got together to buy vacant buildings. They actually formed a cooperative that any Minnesota resident can join for $1,000. And they've upgraded. They've got now different classes of non-voting stock where you can purchase more. And why'd they do that? Well, they didn't have any bakers and brewers in their community. And that's what they wanted. So they bought a building, rehabbed it, and they're working on getting even more bakers and brewers in their community. What if you created an outdoor museum? And it could be anything. These are old cars in Nebraska, buried a quarter of the way up, and they stand up tire to tire. They call it car hinge. And people come from all over the United States to see it. Now, originally it was built to the same layout as Stonehenge. You could have a rusted tractor graveyard. What weather-resistant or happily rusty artifacts would tell the story of your town? Can't you just think of several retired farmers that would help do that? Can you see that we've moved from entrepreneurs to quality of life? So we have a lot already in our small towns. We just don't recognize it as a better quality of life. These unique things are what help make our towns more attractive to entrepreneurs and to the people who already live here. Once in a while, we just have to remind them. The Trust for Public Land is working to bring free fitness zone areas to parks across the nation, creating a fun, accessible, and social environment where people actually enjoy getting fit. This would totally work on any empty lot. Taking better care of our health is important to a lot of people. And this is what helps make your community more sustainable. And our millennials have told us that that's a priority to them. Now imagine building some small steps before starting a business. If you could buy just a few products and test them by renting a booth out at a festival, you'd learn more about what works. You could run a temporary business inside another business for a month or two for more testing. You could outfit a travel trailer as a store and set up a circuit of small towns, building a customer base. And if something doesn't work, you can fix it easily and try again. Now, jumping up to starting a traditional store doesn't seem as hard. You've learned what people want to buy. You've established relationships with suppliers. You've gained a loyal following. All those smaller steps lift you up closer to jumping over that hurdle of starting a traditional business. And if you miss a jump at a smaller step, it's easier to recover and try something new. So let's look at some communities that have provided a place to take those small steps. Tynesta, Pennsylvania, population 500. They had a block-long building burned to the ground, and it sat empty for 10 years. Their economic development people wanted one business to come and just build the whole block out. It would still be empty today if they hadn't changed their minds about that. One gentleman on the board had a wild idea. Why not build sheds on the property, rent them out to entrepreneurs, and fill that lot up? Another board member suggested they put false 1800 fronts on the sheds. So that's what they did. This is what it looks like today. There's a doll dressmaker who hand makes her clothes, a bakery who brings in products from another town. The local winery in the country brings wine in from out of town. There's a restaurant, there's a guy who makes fly fishing lures, and more. There's 11 different sheds there. It's really kind of an business incubator, and it would work not only in an empty lot like this, but it would work in a roofless building just as well. Chad McNair, the CEO of Coffee Tech, now recently moved to Seguin, Texas, was one of 26 Central Texas professionals listed for the Award of Entrepreneur of the Year. Here's a man with a few visions, and he's bringing them to Seguin. Well, here's an idea. This is an empty building. What if Coffee Tech sampled their coffee in an empty building like this? Or showcase some of their products in a building? Make it a party. Pop up for a day or two. Invite the town and your neighbors to meet the CEO and ask questions. And of course, try the coffee. Think about what the supply chain possibilities could be. This man is bringing 91 jobs to town. Wouldn't it be great for the town to meet him and try the coffee? I think so. Pascagoula, Mississippi had a big old dirty lot in town. After Hurricane Katrina, it hit them pretty hard. Somebody had a great idea to use the leftover housing from FEMA to build out this anchor square. They put a deck around it too, and they just made this idea up. Now, Anchor Square also has some green space and room for pop-ups and small vendors to try their ideas out. These folks in this empty green space are your pipeline to continue filling those tiny houses, because those tiny houses move to a bigger location downtown, hopefully. All right, where do you find entrepreneurs? Every year, my town hosts an event called Junk Fest. It brings in all kinds of junkers, both to sell and to buy. So for 3 days, booths are set up, and the vendors range from someone selling grandma's furniture to the person who is recreating old furniture in their garage. Some of these vendors travel a circuit and sell, and some are just others trying an idea out. Walk around and talk to them. Have a good conversation. Dylan Fulton and Camden Bretling, they're high school students from Miller, South Dakota, heard the idea about the tiny market village and said we could do that. So together with some supportive adults, including Tammy Caffey, their teacher, they planned and held an event called Cozy Cabin Christmas. They convinced a storage shed retailer to play host to 4 temporary businesses during their community's month-long Christmas on the Prairie celebration. Those businesses were a photo booth, a local themed vintage t-shirts and license plate, holiday baked goods, and the local Asian food restaurant came to let people try their foods out. Here's the good news. The baked goods lady opened up her own business. The Asian food place now has more customers and they can stay open. And the girl with the photo booth has started a business and travels the region. Please look on Etsy. I just did a quick search for Pottery, Iowa, and found these folks. How it works, pretty easy. You search for an item, and then you can filter by state and then by town. Find out who's selling things on Etsy in your own community or in your own region. Brad Martin has raised over $250,000 on his WTF projects on Kickstarter. And WTF stands for Wrench That Fits. He lives in a little house in my town and works out of his garage. Interesting, right? Kickstarter's great for that. Use social media. The Alexander brothers are on Instagram showcasing their amazing woodworking. They also set up at the annual Christmas event that's held in sheds in a tiny town of Timberville, Virginia. Of course, they sell online. Now think about this. What could you offer these boys that would entice them to at least share some space in a location? Do you have kids in your town or adults in your town that are doing this kind of work? Which leads to the next one. Please look right next to you. Ask your neighbors, your friends, your family, who's making things from home? Who's got great product ideas? All right, we're going to switch hats a little bit. We're going to talk about the future. There are 3 world trends that are not going anywhere. Let's take a look at those trends and what's here and almost here. Now, these can be idea-friendly big ideas. These world trends bring with them innovation and new possibility to do this work right where you are. Rural areas have the room and inclination to be involved in these 3 trends. They are agricultural and food production, energy and natural resource production, and wildlife and nature conservation. You can't raise a herd of cows in the city. We will still have farmers, and we know farmers are an inventing sort of people. Take a visit to the local coffee shop and talk to the old guys there. What things have they invented? I think you'll be surprised. And then find out who the young farmers are and ask them the same question. Now let's look at some of the innovations that are coming from ag right now. Drones, they're easy to use. They monitor your fields right down to the soybean leaf. And there are people in your community already using drones. Reach out to them. EFR is electronic field record. It includes weather, soil data, farm practice, workflow, and visual imagery. Then it takes all of that, applies it to artificial intelligence, resulting in automatic recommendations to help farmers make better decisions. Imagine that. And here's a favorite of mine. I didn't know what blockchain was. I know now, and I'm going to share with you that blockchain is a distributed database existing on multiple computers at the same time. It is constantly growing as new sets of recordings or blocks are added to it. Now each block has a timestamp and a link to the previous block. So they form a chain where the name comes from. Blockchain provides a single source of data and record keeping for farmers. It tracks in one spot your contracts, your inventory, and everything else on your farm. Now here's a funny one. Plant tattoos. Now on corn, they measure the plant's use of water. But think about other technologies that could grow from this idea. You can measure the structural integrity of buildings. You could test crops for diseases and even monitor the environment. A couple of guys in Australia figured out how to weigh their cattle while out in the field. The cattle, they weigh the cattle, not the guys. They started a company, and now their product is in fields all over Australia. They participated in a pitch and grow contest and actually won it, which leads me to these pitch contests. Take a look at everybody that's pitching. You don't have to choose one winner, choose them all. Try all the ideas out. The second trend is energy and natural resources. Now, oil's peak production will be around 2040. Natural gas will be around 2060. When it runs out, are we going to be ready with green energy solutions? Now, according to IBM, I've got some stats for you. Customer demands driving supply chain change. 71% of consumers who say traceability is important will pay up to 35% premium to have it. 60% of consumers are willing to change their shopping habits to reduce environmental impact. 57% of consumers are willing to change purchasing habits to reduce the environmental impact. That's a lot of change people are willing to take. The employees are also affecting change. More than 70% of workers would choose to work at a company with a strong environmental agenda. 40% of millennials said they have chosen a job due to the company's sustainability practices. More than 60% of workers said a strong sustainability plan would affect their decision to stay at a company. Interesting. Let's see the innovations coming from natural and energy resources. The first one up is artificial photosynthesis. It's the process plants use to generate energy. Let's think back to 7th grade science. Its byproduct is hydrogen. Now, there are 0 emissions in hydrogen fuel. The problem is, how do you replicate that photosynthesis process? The scientists are making headway. We should see the answer to that soon. What if you could charge that electric car without having to plug it in, using the power from road friction? That's being explored to do that. How would that make a difference in rural? You could actually have an electric car, first of all, because right now you can't because you drive too far in between places. It would be huge. Liquid sunlight. Sounds kind of space techy, doesn't it? However, scientists are working on creating a liquid that could store sunlight for up to 18 years. Here's a favorite of mine, 3D printed solar trees. These devices are covered in solar-powered leaves that will harvest solar energy. And they're awfully better looking than those solar panels, aren't they? The third rural trend is wildlife and natural conservation. In February 2019, the Senate passed bipartisan legislation that offers monetary prizes for technological innovation in these 5 areas: the prevention of poaching and wildlife tracking, the promotion of wildlife conservation, the management of invasive species, the protection of endangered species, and the non-lethal management of human-wildlife conflicts. Now, the innovations coming from wildlife and natural conservation are, you betcha, facial recognition for fish. According to the Smithsonian Magazine, a pyramid-shaped device guides the fish, into the camera that recognizes their face based on patterns of dots on their snout and gills, and then scans the entire body. If the fish shows signs of a problem, it's then guided into a holding pen for individual treatment. That just amazes me. How about batteries that run on blood? Now, blood significantly improves lithium oxygen battery efficiency. The effect on the environment from the way we currently use the ion lithium batteries and the inefficiency can be improved, and blood is just one way. I want you to start thinking about supply chain growth. All the innovative procedures and technology I just mentioned are going to need a supply chain to support their growth and development. Producers, vendors, transportation companies, warehouses, distribution centers, and even retailers will be needed. Investopedia tells us this: the functions in the supply chain include product development, marketing, operations, distribution, finance, and customer service. There are many ways to support any one of these trends. By looking at that supply chain growth, you get the idea that rural is really well adapted to providing solutions. Where can your town fit into this picture? How will we get from there to here? Well, right now, we're watching the next revolution as it emerges. Tools you're already familiar with and are already using are leading us into the revolution in assistive technology. Some of those tools are artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, blockchain, robotics, voice recognition, smart assistants, sensors, Internet of Everything. They're all emerging and they're all changing the way that we're working together now and in the future. Watching these innovations come to life is giving us many ideas about how rural can be even more involved. But how will we get from here to there? Well, we already are. We're using the idea-friendly method. We're taking small steps. We're trying new ideas out. We're working together. We're making magic. What we don't do is wait for someone to tell us what to do. So we have this idea, Becky and I, that you could use your leaders in town to become the venture capitalist of ideas. City councils have told us they get tired of people coming to them for money and they just don't have it to give. They can't say yes to everyone. Well, what if we change that up a little bit? Your group, your town council, or others could come together to hear ideas from residents. Now, don't do it at City Hall and get buried under all that negative energy. Host it at the local coffee shop or in the park or even at the local bar. Entrepreneurs could come and share their idea and what they'd like to do. Instead of offering money or saying no to them, why not offer to give them connections? Our leaders know more people and organizations than most of us will ever know. You could share contact info at a state level. You could offer to introduce them to a person who could help. Remember, all the ideas are worth trying. Then watch how the ideas grow or don't grow. There actually may be an opportunity for you to invest later down the road in an idea that's actually working. USDA's Forest Service, Rural Development, and the National Institute for Food and Agriculture have developed this resource guide for rural communities to help identify resources that develop the recreation economy. So in recognition of the need for developing the rural economy, the Council called to action federal agencies to infuse rural areas with stronger businesses and agricultural economies to help empower our rural America. Now, this includes promoting innovation farm technology, energy security, recreation, agritourism, and sustainable forest management. It's an amazing resource guide. I've been having a lot of fun going through it. According to Deloitte, just 2% of city residents lack access to high-speed broadband services. Contrast that with rural America, where nearly a third of residents lack broadband access. It's imperative that we have broadband. The Brookings Institute said rural Americans do not have high-speed broadband because of the high cost of stringing or trenching fiber optic cable across empty miles. Paying high capital costs to deliver to only a few subscribers is often hard to justify from a business standpoint. But it's not hard to justify the connections from a public interest standpoint, nor is it hard to justify from an economic recovery standpoint. Connecting to the internet means connecting to jobs. Now, I've sent this link so you could look at your map a little bit closer to Nancy so she can share this article with you. They actually will give you 5 steps on how to get broadband for all in your community. What are some small steps that you can take right now today when you're done watching this? Write and call your senators and legislators. Start at the state level, go up to federal. Insist that we need broadband for all. Now you can post these numbers on Facebook and ask your friends to call them too. And if you're really interested, if this is a sore spot for you, begin by gathering your crowd. Who would be interested in pursuing this further? Andrew Button is the creator of Mashup Lab, and he says, I really see the potential of those rural places. We just need to put some focus, structure, and processes around the unleashing that potential and expanding the horizon of the opportunities. He goes on to say, so I've seen and experienced what is possible for rural, but I've also seen a lack of urgency and the wasted and misallocated resources and entrepreneurial talent tucked away in those rural communities that is yet to be activated, which I believe is tragic. He started Mashup Labs 6 years ago he's in Nova Scotia, by the way, with an obvious focus on unleashing the potential of rural communities. And they do that in 3 ways. They run events, they have created rural co-working spaces, and they have a virtual business incubation program. Now, if you're interested, just go to mashuplab.ca, visit the website. And I want you to know I'm not paid to share his information. I like what he's doing with economic development to bring entrepreneurs into our small towns. Not only bring them in, but to bring them out of our small towns. And finally, watch this 30-minute video from us. It's all about the idea-friendly method and how you can use it in your community. You're going to want to plan watch parties, get as many people involved as you can. The future is for those who dream it and make it happen. Thank you.
Wow, Deb. I don't know about anybody else, but I got goose flesh several times during your presentation. Thanks for that inspiration.
Thank you.
Yeah, so a comment was made in the chat. I think Kurt is asking for the resource guide from USDA. If you're able to provide that, is that right, Kirk?
Yes, that is. That is something that, especially in the rural towns, it's basically how do we get outside money here? Let's be honest. That's what it is. So I had never heard of agritourism, and I'll be honest, that's because when I grew up in the suburbs, so during the summer when we were shipped off to the uncle's farm, I hated that. So I could never imagine somebody wanting to go and pay
for it, right?
But apparently people want to do that, and if we've got the cows, we will take your money if you want to come enjoy milking cows. I don't know.
And not just cows, but sustainable farming, gardening. I mean, the opportunities are just immense for agritourism. Nancy, that link is in the document that I sent you.
Yep.
So you've got it to share as well.
Yes.
And it's on the screen if you want to write that all down. You can also search for it too, Recreation Economy, USDA, and find it there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Deb. Are there any other questions or comments, or this is the spot at which you would share as well? So if you would like to share anything, unmute yourselves, and we're happy to hear from you.
Deb, real quick, I mean, something that really hit home with me about what you said is, we know the bureaucracy of small towns. Even small towns have deep-rooted bureaucracies. So you're absolutely right when it comes to just ask around, find people, that want to do something with your town, and it can start in a coffee shop. I mean, our country's revolution was built in a beer hall, so, obviously it works. So,
and if you haven't watched Hamilton, it's on Disney Channel. Please go watch it. Sorry, It's really good.
Yeah.
This is from someone that doesn't like rap music, and it's mostly rap, so I think you would enjoy it. Kirk is involved with 1 Million Cups, which is another way to bring entrepreneurs into a central location to talk about what they're doing. And Kirk, do you have an address somebody can reach out to you for more information about what you're doing in Manhattan?
Absolutely. I'll put my email, my generic email, in the chat for anyone, and I'll also put the link for 1 Million Cups. And I don't want to make this a commercial for 1 Million Cups, but basically it is a completely free education piece where entrepreneurs gather for education and feedback. It's not a pitch competition. They're not allowed to pitch, but basically an entrepreneur comes before the audience and says, here's my idea, here's my struggles, and there's a back and forth with the audience to say, hey, have you tried this? Or here's an idea. So it's more education and workshopping every week. If the 1 Million Cups in your area does it every week, but yeah, that's what it is. And I'll type out the link real quick in the chat box.
And the 1 Million Cups was designed and created by a young man named Nate Olson, who works at Crema in Kansas City now. So he's a local Midwestern boy. I'd just like to give him a shout out.
So I have a suggestion for the, you can do it yourself or we can take Deb's presentation off the screen, is that each of you open up your cameras if you're able and willing, and so we can make some more connections between our audience and continue the conversation. But you can also do that just by changing the size of your screen. So there we go. Thanks, Deb.
You're welcome.
So thank you, Kirk, for opening up the discussion. And Deb, we're getting lots of good comments in the chat. There are just so many things that we can do when we connect with each other. I wrote down 5 tips from Deb about things to watch on TV and places to go and things to do before we even started this. So we're going to open up our cameras and let you all share what you want to share about what you heard today. What are you going to do with what you heard?
What are you going to begin? What differently idea appeals to you, and how are you going to bring people to you to talk about it? Don't worry, I won't hold you accountable. You can share. Jody, is it Horner?
Honer?
I think I know you. Can you take yourself off of mute and talk with us a little bit? Maybe.
There she is.
Hi, we've got new equipment in my office. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. This is the first time using it. I think it was a great presentation. I took a lot of notes. I have a passion for increasing access to physical activity and healthy food in the community, and so there's a lot of good ideas on that. I can't wait to look at that recreation economy document and see what kind of ideas come up on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of information there. I was pleasantly surprised. Not only just information, but links to resources. Which is
great. We also have, we're always working on revitalizing downtown. There was recently a business or a property owner who was talking about doing like an open air market in their downtown building. And so I really like the idea of using those sheds and then putting those storefronts on. I thought that would be something good we can share with the chamber.
Yeah, and if you've got somebody that's already owning a building, one of the best ways to fill an empty building is by shared spaces. It's hard to get one individual business into an empty building, but it's so much easier to test the ideas out by bringing 3 or 4 people in to share the cost of it and to cross-pollinate their audiences, which is great.
How do the logistics of that work out with the liability on, because anytime you take on, I'm a property owner in the downtown as well and restored an old condemned building and put a business in there. So so I know the liabilities that come up with those old buildings. Like what are the logistics of sharing that between 3 different entities?
It's different in each situation. In Washington, Iowa, there's an old J.C. Penney's, and they rehabbed it to call it the Village. It's a big, wide open space. And they started with just 3 or 4 people from one corner and spread out. And they share the way that their tags are marked. It's rung up, and Square makes this really easy to do. It's just rung up and then spread out, and you get a check however often you get a check as an entity. And they share working that register. So you're not required to be there 7 days a week, but you are required to be there maybe once every other week. So that's
I'm talking about like ownership of the building itself, though.
Good question. So if they're going to buy the building, hey, you need a lawyer to talk about that. Frankly, I'm not legal advice. I don't do that very well. But I do know it's possible, and you can reach out to most towns. Look for a young lawyer in your community that's willing to explore that. And not to put down the older lawyers, but they're kind of stuck in a mindset. So looking for somebody younger is helpful. And maybe you want to look outside of your community. You might want to contact your state legal associations and see if anybody's done that before. Are you renting yours out? Is that what you're doing, or it's your own store?
Yeah, my husband and I have a liquor store that we put in there, and we're actually doing apartments in the upstairs right now.
Well, bravo to you for second story housing. I love that. And liquor comes with even more liability, I'm quite sure.
Yes.
Who did you go to for your insurance advice?
We have an insurance agent in a small town. He's a good friend of ours, and so we have all of our policies through the same person. What I'm thinking is, as far as, liability is concerned, is the cost liability with those old buildings. And when you start getting into them, there's always going to be more than you budgeted for, or there's always going to be something that comes up or something that's going to break. So that's what I was trying to think about as we think through those partnerships. I mean, I think it's a good idea to spread the burden of the cost on many shoulders, so that it doesn't appear like it's quite so overwhelming. I just was just curious about the logistics of that.
Well, in my community, I have anytime somebody's interested in seeing a building and thinking about buying it, I can call our local contractor. He's a large contractor, and he'll come and go through the building with that person that's interested and point things out. This is good. This you might want to consider, really point things out. And then you want to look at your city code and how difficult is it. Do you have to put sprinklers in? Or can you work with the city council to make that a process that you do over 5 years? I mean, think of alternatives. You want to get into business as soon as you can, if you're ready to do that, but you also can't be buried by cost or you'll never open. So it's a matter of negotiating and working with people in the community. That will help as well.
Yeah, I think that a lot of our buildings are so far gone that there's no way to invest in some of our downtown buildings unless there's public funds included in it, unfortunately.
And I think, to that very point is, once again, getting that group of people together, and there are funds available, like you said, and it doesn't have to be just public funds. The last thing anybody wants to do is be like, hey, we're going to add a penny to the tax or a percentage to the tax to help out these entrepreneurs. Sometimes that doesn't fly very well. However, there are grants, and, there's quite a bit of COVID money raining down, if you will, to businesses and entrepreneurs, to where, you have a small organization and they take on part of that burden, knowing that this is a sunk cost that will pay dividends in the fact that this building, will be revitalized, and we may have 3 to 5 to 7 to a dozen small business people, get their start that they otherwise may not have.
In Waynoka, Oklahoma, which is a tiny town, a group of citizens got together, pooled some money, and bought a building and rehabbed it themselves. And then they sold it. And then they took that money and bought another building. I mean, Stanhope, Iowa did the same thing. Jewel, Iowa needed a dentist, so the economic development people bought a building, fixed it up, and found a dentist and offered that building to the dentist at a nominal fee to have him come and be there at least 5 years. So the Minneapolis people that I talked about, the Minnesota people that got together and formed this cooperative, those are all great ideas, because people really do want to save your downtown. It's not just you, it's not just pie in the sky kind of thinking. It's actual, do you have $1,000? Can you find $1,000? Let's figure out how to make this work. And don't spend 10 years in meetings trying to figure it out. Go meet at an empty building and talk about it there. Get into action right away. That help?
Excellent. Yeah. Michael,
Oh,
Is there
Jean's-
anybody that wants to share? Just unmute yourself and
Yeah, I just saw a very cool little chat come from, was it Jen? If you could just unmute and talk about that.
Yeah, because that's quite interesting.
Jean Carter.
Hello, all. Do you have
Hi.
me, Nancy?
Yes.
Hi.
yes.
Okay, I'm going to pop over and shut my door. Hang on just a minute. Sorry.
While we're waiting for her, if you look at the chat over in the right-hand side, there's 3 little dots. If you click that, you can save the chat to your screen.
Good tip.
I'm back. So Lewisburg, I've been with the city since 2016, and right after I started, we did first impressions with Nancy at K-State, and that really helped. Then right after that, we revitalized our 3-block downtown area with new streetscape. And from that, council decided to set some money aside to help businesses and residents fix up the fronts of their homes or businesses. At first, we targeted it to the area surrounding our downtown, and now we've expanded it to the entire city. So residents can get up to $500 to fix the fronts of their homes. So that could be, you know, driveways, windows, front doors, roofs, shutters, landscaping. And businesses can take advantage of that and do similar type stuff. So signage, lighting, brick tucking if they need that. So we've had quite a few businesses and home residents take advantage of that. And in fact, we've had a downtown business that has done it twice. They did new windows and new doors one year, and then the second year they did painting and repaired some stucco. So, you know, you might be able to go to your city and see if they have some funding that they could set aside to help. You know, it's not a lot of money, but gosh, if that's $1,500 a business doesn't have to come up with.
It's an encouragement. It's a
Yeah,
super
it's
encouragement.
right. And we actually had a lot of residents take advantage of it last year. We haven't had as much this year. I don't know if it's the COVID thing. And I know they say in the news a lot of people are doing home repairs, but we haven't had as much residents this year.
Boy,
But
and
it's a great program. And, you
these-
know, it doesn't, if the city can come up with some money in their budget, it doesn't cost a lot. And it's good PR.
Well, and to look at, like Kirk said, there's a lot of COVID money coming in now through the state level, and they're finally getting to disperse it to communities. So I would absolutely visit with your city manager or your mayor, whoever would be knowledgeable about that, and just ask about it. Hey, what's going on with that COVID money? And are you sharing that information? And how can we get more news around that? Because sometimes we don't read the paper and we don't see it, or we miss the radio show about it, or the Facebook page goes right by us. So you still have to reach out to humans and talk to humans as well.
Jean, thank
Well,
you for
and
sharing.
Deb, I'll point out that some small communities don't have newspapers anymore. So for some areas, it is hard to get that local news.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I can, as a stranger, as an outsider, I stop by Lewisburg when I'm on Highway 69 just to see how, and it has changed radically in 3 years. It's just, it really is noticeable.
I will say we still do have that empty building on Broadway. And when we had, what were we going to do? We were going to do something, and we were going to paint a couple of the windows of the empty building, and we never did that. And that's something I would like to pursue at some point when we have something going on. Of course, with COVID, all of our Labor Day stuff has been canceled, but that's something that's on my dream list someday.
Okay, so just bring some of your friends together and create a ninja move and go do it. Just go do it.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Tell you take the paint off? No,
Right.
of course not.
Right. No.
It's just,
And
it's
already has
only
a-
graffiti if it looks bad, right? I mean, otherwise it's art.
No, and the property owner has already given permission. It's just
Yeah.
figuring out to do it.
So put a call out, one Sunday morning and see who shows up at 2:00 Sunday afternoon to help you.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, I see you've shared Michael Amak. I don't know if I'm saying your name right. Would you come off of mute too and share, talk to us what you put in the chat box?
I just put in the links to the CARES Act funding that's available for small businesses and also food system grants to procure more PPE equipment. So this is going on right now, and resource partners like Small Business Development Center and SCORE are helping people put a good proposal together. It is a competitive process, but these grants are available and they won't last that long. And specific counties have also received block grant, CARES Act funds to provide, like the county where Wichita is located, Sedgwick, has a $5,000 grant program available. And so, these are things many of the people on the call already know about this, but in case someone doesn't, this is very important.
Are you with the SBA, Michael?
Yes.
Would you
And we're
put your
currently-
put your contact information and who can reach out to you, if you would, in the chat room?
Certainly. Yeah, we're waiting. I believe Congress is going to provide, hopefully, another round of some sort of stimulus or relief for businesses and nonprofits. But while we wait for it, Kansas does have these CARES Act funding available. So we'll see.
And thanks, Scott, for putting that tip in there to look at it closely, because some may have closed already.
Thank you all for sharing. That's just wonderful. And this might be a good time to share, we're almost out of time, that our next speaker is Steve Radley, who's the CEO of Network Kansas. He's well familiar with most of you. And Steve is going to talk, and I'm saying this because I want you to pay attention. He wants you to reach out to him if you have somebody that they can help. He's going to discuss the significant changes that are taking place in the Kansas Healthy Food Initiative and the Kansas Community Investment Fund. We heard about that last year. He will tell us about how both funds offer new opportunities for loans and grants to businesses providing healthy food access, education attainment, access to care, healthy behaviors, and civic and community engagement. And so he is asking that if you are currently working with any business in that area, and I will put this also in the follow-up email to you so that you'll have this list to consider who you know. But if you are currently working with businesses in any of those areas, Steve would like you to contact himself or Imogene Harris before the next meeting. But then at the next meeting in October, don't have that date written down here, Steve will give those updates about the Kansas Healthy Food Initiative and the Kansas Community Investment Fund. So Deb, thanks a million times over, not just a cup, but a gallon, for being here with us and all the great ideas. And thank you all for the contributions. I always leave you with a thought for the day. And this is from Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali says, "Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it." So go out and make it a great Kansas day, or wherever you're at. Let's create the world that we want to live in. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.